November marks 1 year since I first started doing pen and paper budgets and sharing them on YouTube, and I'm excited to share with you all the progress that I've made in that year. Ready? Then let's go. Hi, my name is Drew, and you're watching Ready Budget Go. Today I'm going to be working on my November budget, and I'll be taking you along through that process with me. This budget will look quite a bit different from the one that I did a year ago, and it's exciting because this is the first time that I am able to review my year ago budget as part of the budgeting process. So I think I'm going to start there, and I'm going to open my book here and go back to November 2024 because I've saved all of last year's, all of the last 12 months of budgets. So here's what November 2024 looked like. This was quite an involved budget. I had a lot of bills and a lot of things that I was recording as bills that I no longer record that way. So I had the income sources, those are pretty much the same. My income has gone down, and that's only because I am contributing more now to my 401k than I was. So that's eating up more of each paycheck. And then down here in the bill section, excuse me, there have been quite a few changes. My rent has come down significantly. Water, sewer, garbage has come down significantly. I no longer get a transit pass every single month. Renter's insurance has gone up a little bit. Savings for the emergency fund is complete. I still have iCloud. I no longer subscribe to Max. YouTube Premium's about the same. And one other thing that's different here is that now I round all these up. So all the bills get rounded up to the nearest whole dollar, and I don't have near as many of them. So let's get out a clean sheet for November of this year. And I've already put together this budget, but I am going to fill it in by hand slowly so that I can explain what everything looks like. Now, excuse me, another document that I reference when I'm looking to put together my budget is the current month's budget. So we're talking about October of 2025. So let me flip over to that section here, which is the first part. So when I start building my budget, the current month is what I use more or less as a template. So for November 2025, I'm just going to fill in the month and the year here. November 2025. Income is going to be the same as October. That doesn't really change. Because I am on salary, I don't have fluctuation in my paychecks. Sell reimbursement. So paychecks are $2,997 each. I do get paid twice a month, once on the 15th and once on the last business day of the month. And the cell phone reimbursement is $100 because we are on BYOD, or bring your own device. So the cell phone is mine, the bill is in my name, and my company reimburses me $100 for hardware and usage charges. So now let's talk about the bills. So the first one that I always put down is rent. Shelter costs are, of course, important, and that also does not change. My lease runs out at the end of February. Well, actually, it's in early March, so it will change next year if I choose to renew, and I may just do like a 6-month lease if it's available when that time comes. Okay, then we've got water, sewer, garbage, also due on the 1st. And for me, that costs around $100 a month. Last month it was $89, but I always budget $100, and it usually comes in a little bit under. Then iCloud, which is my storage, is every month $3. And then on the 3rd, renter's insurance, that too got kind of wonky, and now the 3 is wonky. I'll fix those later. Renter's insurance is $15 a month, so that again doesn't change. On the 5th, Quantum, which is my home internet, that is $75. On the 10th, YouTube Premium, and that is $16 a month. Around the 21st, PUD, which is electricity, and I budget $60, but that fluctuates quite a bit. The 24th, Visible, which is my cell phone plan, and that is $35 a month. Now that is it for the regular bills. Anything that is above and beyond that for a given month, I will add in below. In October, I had a haircut, I had prescription refills. I wasn't planning on it, but I had a Netflix subscription come out, so I still need to cancel that because I don't intend to carry that into next month. And then I also had a medical bill from LabCorp for some blood work for $9. So in November, what I will do then is look at not only last year's budget, but also my subscription trackers. So this is the monthly subscription tracker, and these are the things that go month to month. You can see I've had 3 here in the past that I've canceled. I canceled my Mac subscription, I canceled Rocket Money, and I canceled Log and Jotter. But I still have iCloud, I still have YouTube Premium. If I add any other monthly subscriptions here, I will add them. The reason Netflix doesn't appear here is because it was never my intention to keep it, but I have been lazy, frankly, in canceling it, and so I've paid for it for 2 extra months so far. Determined not to do that again. In fact, I'm going to try to cancel it right after I get done filming this video. Then I look at the yearly subscription tracker, and these are expenses that come out once a year, and I look to see if I've got any for the month that I'm budgeting for. And you can see here I've got a credit card annual fee coming up for $650, but I've decided that I'm not going to keep that card another year, so I have that marked for cancellation, and I will call American Express and cancel it. Okay, then we have the non-monthly recurring expense planner, and this is for anything that comes up either bi-monthly or quarterly or semi-annually or irregularly. So I have prescriptions that I get the first month of each quarter, which would be January, April, July, and October. So I don't have that for November. In even-numbered months, I get a haircut. So I just got one in October this month. So I won't have one in November. And then Orca card varies. So this used to be a monthly expense, but since I don't go to the office every single month and I'm not using transit as much as I used to, I don't need to pay for it as often. So when my balance dips low enough, I will put $50 more on the card, and I would just put that in as a regular. So just as a reminder that it's something that I need to look at each month. I looked at my Orca card this month. I've still got over $70 on it, so that should be more than enough to cover me for November. So now coming back to this budget, so I've already looked at everything for October, and now because I have the ability to reference last year's, I just want to go through that budget and look to see if there were any notes that I made about things to watch out for in November of this year. So I've got all the budget sheets. I've got the expense trackers, everything. So here's the month-end review from November 2024. I write what went well, what needs improvement, and things to remember for this time next year, and I do this every single month. So it looks like last year, wallet spending was close to the target, and Christmas shopping finished early, so that's great. But what needs improvement? Most weeks were over budget. So I had some weeks that were under budget, but most weeks I went over. So the overall total came in pretty much on target, but most of the weeks I was over. So the message to myself was, watch what you're doing from week to week. And then I also said I need a short-term disaster fund, like self-insurance and a plan. And I did that. That's the blip fund. So that was something that I started this year. And I'll just flip over to that real quick. That is essentially, it was originally $2,400 and now it's $2,000 because I've taken some money out. But this is to protect against any unbudgeted spending. So anything that comes up, whether it is a doctor visit, an emergency room visit, heaven forbid, anything like that that I was not planning on that I need to cover within the month, I have this fund to do it. If I spend anything out of this fund, like if the balance goes below $2,000, then my priority is getting this back up to $2,000 before I can do any other saving. And so far, I haven't had to touch it. I did take it down from $2,400 to $2,000, but other than that, it is still intact. So, going back to, where were we? November 2024. And to the budget summary, or the review. Okay, so I already talked about that. And then down here under the things to remember for next year, I wrote, if still Christmas gifts to buy, make list starting in early November. Make list early in November to reduce Black Friday temptation. So I do still have some holiday shopping to do, and I will be making that list so that I don't go crazy on Black Friday. I am also planning on being out of town on Black Friday, so hopefully that will help by reducing the temptation to shop till I drop because I got to drag all that stuff home with me. All right, so coming back to the October budget, I don't really have anything else to add for November, except I think I may go to see the doctor, and if so, I will have that expense come in toward the end of the month. So I'm just going to put in doctor office visit $500, and that is to cover the cost of the office visit. If I go see a specialist, it is super duper expensive. I'm thinking I may go see my dermatologist. I am getting close to my deductible for the year. And because I'm on a high deductible insurance plan, once I hit that deductible, my insurance will cover 80% of all the costs. So I'm trying to see every doctor I can before the year rolls over. Okay, so I already totaled up all of this, and that came to $2,596. So let's write that in here. Okay. Wallet spending, this is every Friday in November, and those are the 7th, the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th. And I give myself $250 a week. That is $200 to put on a credit card and $50 in cash. If I don't spend the cash, or whatever cash I do not spend, that goes into a slush fund for celebrations, holidays, birthdays, anything like that. Okay, then let's talk about stockpiles. So these are essentially my own savings accounts where I am putting money away for a specific purpose. Currently, I have two of them. I have one for travel and I have one for the big move. I am looking to expand this next year. I am planning on doing one for clothing, one for household, and I can't remember the third, but there was a third that I was also planning on doing. So for now, though, it is only travel and the big move that are getting any attention. And this is done by Wednesday because I do 3 videos a week on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays to put money toward these goals. So Monday is Ready Budget Game. That is the game night. Tuesday, I do regular savings challenges. And then on Wednesday, I do the Paint by Sticker, where I also talk about my financial philosophy and my experiences with managing money. And I do a savings challenge where I put money toward my goals as well. So we're doing 500 per week. And it usually ends up more than this because I go over. I don't use IOUs. If I'm over by a few dollars, I just throw in a few more dollars. And it just gets me to my goal that much quicker. So in all, $2,000. Nothing else for savings or extra debt. I distinguish savings from stockpiles, as in savings doesn't have a specific purpose in mind. So savings would be like an emergency fund, the blip fund, retirement, anything like that. And I'm not doing that currently because my Roth IRA is already fully funded. My other retirement contributions are through a payroll deduction. So nothing in this section. That will come back next year when the IRA for 2026 opens. Okay, so now it's time for the totals. And I didn't total this. That is $6,094. Okay, so we've got $6,094 in income. 2,596, 96 in bills, $1,000 in wallet spend, $2,000 in stockpiles, nothing for savings or extra debt payments, and that leaves me with a remainder of $498. That is a big fat remainder, but I may go to the doctor more than once. There's also Black Friday is kind of a wild card here. I may need more business supplies, in which case I may need to float a loan over to Ready Budget Go, and that would have to come out of my checking account. So having a nearly $500 buffer in November, I think is worthwhile, rather than trying to shimmy money into all these different categories and then having to shuffle things all around during the month. I would rather leave myself a gap where I can pull from if necessary if some of these go over. So that is it for the monthly budget. But I also have a few other worksheets that I fill out each month. So let's talk about those. And close this so that it's not a distraction. Okay. So the cash allocation, this is where I plan out my wallet spending and my stockpiles for the month. The wallet is always the same, $200 a week for card spending and $50 a week for cash. Most of the card spending is food and groceries, whether that is Costco for a warehouse run or a grocery store or a restaurant, whatever it is. And then $50 in cash is for kind of mad money. I use it in places where generally I use cash when I'm patronizing an establishment that asks for a tip when I feel that a tip is not necessarily warranted, or when I can, if I'm not going to be, if they're going to watch me, input a tip amount into the credit card machine. I don't know. It just makes me uncomfortable. So I use cash in those situations. I do tip. I am always happy to tip for service, but in places where service is limited or non-existent, it's a little bit of a different story, especially here in the state of Washington, where our minimum wage is so high, and tips on top of that, I think, are kind of gilding the lily. Washington State has very good worker protections. Every employee in the state of Washington has access to paid time off for sick leave, family leave. There is a benefit for long-term care. So there are a lot of benefits on the social safety net. So tipping on top of that, with prices where they are and wages where they are, it makes things really expensive. So that is my whole philosophy on that. So at any rate, and most weeks I don't spend the cash because I just don't visit those establishments with my new life working from home. So that is the whole thing with card and cash. And then stockpiles, I have each week $300 going to the big move, $200 going to travel throughout the month, and that will total up to, oops, I didn't total this here, $1,000 in the wallet and $2,000 in stockpiles. So that is the cash allocation worksheet, and this helps keep me honest with where things are supposed to go throughout the month, especially with stockpiles, because I do often forget what my plan was, and then I got to come back and reference it and move things around to align with what the original plan was. Okay, then there is the monthly cash flow tracker, and this is basically like a check register. It just makes me look at my checking account every week to make sure there's no weird transactions going on, that I can account for everything, that I know what every transaction is, and that I'm keeping on top of the money that is coming in and out of that account. So that is the cash flow tracker. Then there's the expense tracker, and this is everything that I put on a credit card. I write down here so that I can keep track of it, so that I'm not going over budget each and every week. Even though many weeks I do go over budget anyway, and then I've got to sort things out, but that's why I give myself that buffer. And then lastly, the month-end review. So I will fill in all of the numbers here from my budget plan. In fact, let's do that now. Let me bring that sheet back out. Okay, so $6,094 income, $2,596 bills, $1,000 in wallet spending, $2,000 in stockpiles, nothing for savings, nothing for extra debt, and a remainder of $498. That is the plan. So at the end of November, I will be able to come back to this worksheet, fill in the final numbers, which I'll also fill in here, and then explain why those numbers were off, and review the month so that I am reflecting on how I'm using my money and how I want to do better in the future. And that's what got me to this point. This budget now over the past year has been refined, optimized, right-sized, retooled, any adjective you want to throw at it pretty much for improved. And especially looking back at the budget from 2024, I have far fewer bills, right? I have my expenses kind of in line with where they should be, and there's fewer, well, I shouldn't say there's fewer surprises, because this year has been full of surprises. But I feel I'm better able to cope with those surprises because I've seen what it's like when I wasn't prepared. That was where I was a year ago. Now I'm more prepared. Now I have things lined up to make my money work better for me. And I encourage anyone, whether you use this system or something different, just to, if you haven't done it already, do it for a year. do a pen and paper budget for a year, see how much things improve, because I am surprised. I feel I'm at a point now where I could move to digital budgeting, and I might. But I think had I started there a year ago, I don't think I would be where I am today. So that is just my perspective, and that is my November budget. So thank you so much for watching, for spending time with me. I do appreciate it more than I can put into words. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below. Subscribe if you're new, and until I see you in the next one, which should be tomorrow for Ready Budget Game, take care.